almost crashed into the garden. Couldn't help from laughing, all naked in the pool. Fortune tellers all forgot our names. We can see it all out here in this blue. Baby, I would do this in your orbit, feet on the ground. Yeah, baby, I would do this in your orbit. Losing all the core, take you to the corner, running like we're famous, lost but still inside. My heart is dancing like a wild machine. All that even matters is how close we sleep tonight. Baby, I will do this in your orbit, feet on the ground. Yeah, baby, I will do this in your orbit, your orbit. We got lost in California, almost crashed into the garden. Couldn't help from laughing, all naked in the pool. Fortune tellers all forgot our names. We can see it all out here in this blue. Baby, I would do this in your orbit, feet on the ground. Yeah, baby, I would do this in your orbit, your orbit. What's up, everyone? How's it going? I'm coming to you from the power station at Berkeley in New York. This is 343 Labs, one of my favorite things in the whole world. Having online, in-person lessons in New York, in Berlin. Hey, Max, what up? Hey, Silent State, good to see you. Simple Sam, what up? Oh, Enigmatic Onion, that's so nice. Thank you very much. That was a remix of one of my tunes. Oh, and thanks, Enigmatic Onion. The wedding was great. Yeah, it was really fun. I got married, went to Miami for 3 days on a honeymoon, drank a lot of pina coladas, but now we're back in the mix. Lots of fun things going on. We have also a user group on Thursday. If anyone's in New York, 343 Labs is hosting. I'm going to do some vocal chops performing at it, and I'm sure everyone's going to be throwing down as usual. What have we got in the way of time zones today, everyone? Are we in a coffee or a drinking place in our lives? Maybe a little bit of both. What we're going to do today is talk about setting up our Ableton session for live shows or live streams, and different ways to arrange your stems, looking at some breakdowns of some really popular artists you might know and how they use Ableton. So let's dive right in. I want to kind of make today a fake performance, as if we're going to use a Dua Lipa song, a Harry Styles song, and a Taylor Swift song. So as if we were all three of those people. And I want to show you in Ableton how we would set up the stems all the way through the show, and then how you would route it and how you could play it live. Simple Sam, you're in the drinking zone. Man, I like it. Binghamton, NY. Binghamton, NY today. Where is... Oh, Binghamton. That's probably how you say it, not Binghamton. Yeah. Yeah, I'm all up on the coffee today. Okay, so first, many of you guys might already be super familiar with what Ableton Playback is, but in case you're not, it's essentially playing tracks through, at its simplest, it's playing tracks through a sound system while you are on stage not playing those instruments. And it is amazing how many people use Ableton Playback, and no one ever notices. My husband now is a computer engineer, and when I go to like a club with him, I'll say, like, do you notice how many things are not being played on stage but are like just coming through the PA? And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, this is all on stage. And there will be like a gospel choir coming through the Ableton Playback. So it's really amazing how much it's used, and there's some really like tasteful ways to do it so it's not obvious. So yeah, let's dive in. So I made a little annotated video I'm gonna play, and this is the first song I want to look at, Don't Stop Now, which many of us know, Dua Lipa, and this was her SNL performance. My friend is actually the bass player on this, so he has confirmed that I am correct in everything that was in the tracks. And I think it's also really good to notice that the most obvious instruments are being played on stage. So it looks really natural. And the things that are not super obvious are much easier to put in the tracks. So without further ado, let's check it out.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dua Lipa!
Okay, so you can see like how much is being put into the tracks, and most people would not realize. Simple Sam, I'm still working on the dance moves. Something like that. That's why I just try to stay behind an Ableton push. Okay, so let's check out if we were the musical director for this or we were the artist. Let's take a look at Ableton and how we would start setting up this session. Okay, so I have gone ahead and dragged in some sound-alike stems into this session, and we're just gonna look at Don't Start Now. So I have 3 songs. You can do Ableton playback from arrangement view or session view, depending on your needs. If you need like a lot of follow actions and you're doing more of a free form thing, session view is probably going to be your bet. If you're just setting up straight up Ableton playback like this, it could be fine to use arrangement view. So I made a marker. By the way, in case you don't know, this is what makes a marker, this little set thing. But this is something that I use all the time, and it's really nice to set your own custom command for it, which you can do by pressing on this key. Well, actually, let's get it back to, there we go. So if you press this key thing, and then you push on what you want to change. And then I just did Shift 2. And then I can look over and I have now made a shortcut for my add locator because I don't want to have to push set all the time. Okay, so this is Don't Start. I always forget if it's Don't Stop Now or don't start now, not Don't Stop Now. Okay, so let's just take a listen to this. Whoa, let's also turn off this. Okay, so that's the vibe. That sounds like the song. And if you have a song that you want to use and set up for a live show, you would want to print stems, which is what these are called. They obviously come from the mix session, but oftentimes they are condensed a little bit. So instead of, I don't have, for like instance, for the background vocals, I don't have 20 background vocal stems. They're all condensed into one part because I'm going to just treat that part the same. So that's kind of one thing that separates a stem from just, you know, you don't typically want 100 tracks in your playback. So I've got guitar, I've got piano, I've got synth, strings, bass, of course, effects, percussion, drums, and click and counting. So all of these instruments are fairly straightforward. I've just dragged them in, but and grouped things. And we'll get into why it's so important to group your instruments, especially for playback, because you might end up sending them out through different channels. But I have my instruments, so my guitars in this case. Then I have piano, synth, strings, horns, flute, those are going to come in later songs. Those are all just in my instrument group. Then I have bass, I have effects also in there, and I have my drums in their own group. And then my click and my count. So the click and the count are the most important thing. Well, the music's the most important thing, but the click and count are super important. Hey, CHB Music from Portugal. Oh, my video cam is just the black. Oh. I think that was from before, right? Simple Sam. Hopefully it's fine now. Let me know. Oh, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying, Simple Sam. Simple Sam saved the day. Thank you so much. That was strange what just happened. I am here now. You're awesome, Simple Sam. Okay, so now you can just see my animated facial expressions with this. Okay, so, all right, first thing I did was entered automation mode by clicking A, and I made sure that I was in my mixer song tempo and that I was at the right tempo. So I knew this song was at a tempo of 124. And as you see, I'm going to change this as the session goes on. But I want to make sure everything is on the grid because I'm going to be using Ableton's grid to set up my count-in. So then I made a count-in. And for when I make live playback, I always do the same exact count-in. I have learned the hard way that if you do one count-in that's like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then another count-in that's 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, on stage you're gonna forget like which one is which. So I always have the exact same thing, and I say the name of the song first, which is also really important because if you're on stage with a bunch of musicians and maybe you've changed the set list around or someone forgot, you want to just have that all there. So here's the count-in. Don't start now. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the reason that piano was playing do, do, do is because the vocals come in right away. So you want to give the vocalist a chance to get their note and be ready to go. And the way I did that was I just recorded myself saying, don't stop now, or don't start now. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I had a click going, and then I had the piano, and then I printed all of those together. So just to kind of highlight the point, let's make, not an audio track, let's make a MIDI track. Let's grab a piano. Let's go to the go-to instruments, grand piano. So here, if you wanted to make yourself a really nice count-in, you could just, put your, whatever your note is that you need. Maybe you would put it here. And then you would make an audio track that is outside of the group. And I'm going to pretend this is my count. Then I'm going to, hey, Emmanuel from Italy. Good to see you. Okay, so I have my count. What I want to do is put my count with my piano. So I'm going to send, let's say this is like final count. Here, I'm going to send this to final count. And then I'm going to press record or arm the track. Then I'm going to press record. And then you have your whole thing. So that is how I achieved, I'm going to delete these now, but that's how I got this count. Okay, so I have that. Great. Oh, we got to. Hang on. I deleted too much. There we go. Okay. And we don't want this out sends only for now. We do want to hear it. Don't start now. Okay. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
If you don't wanna see me.
Now, of course, we want to have the click going. So you can either use, Ableton's click. So if I turn this off, I can put the metronome on. Don't start now.
If you don't wanna see me,
Up or down.
did a full 180, crazy.
I prefer to print my own click just so it's a little bit, I have more control over it. And the way you can do that is just, find a click sound you like and put it on 4 beats and duplicate it a bunch of times and hit old Command J and consolidate. Okay, so now let's say we were trying to recreate what we just saw. So they had a bass player. So we're going to deactivate the bass. They had, let's give ourselves some more real estate. They did not have strings. They did not have a synth. They did not have a piano player. They did not have a guitar player. They did not have background singers. They did have lead vocals. And they did have a drummer, but they didn't have percussion. So this is what your live show would sound like. Don't start now. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Whatever the words are, and there's probably a bunch of latency. Turn this off. So you can see it's not that much stuff. It's really just the more production elements that make it sound like a fully fleshed song. I'm gonna come back full screen. And make it sound produced. And what I really find now when I go see live shows is the audience is expecting for it to sound as good or better than the recorded version. And also, like, if you have a really electronic sound, you probably don't want to just go up and present that with only a ukulele. You want to show all this hard work you put into your production, all this really cool stuff, those noise effects. Cowbell is always, if you put some time into a cowbell, you want to be broadcasting that to your feed. So I especially noticed this when I first came to New York, 10 years ago, when I wasn't using any Ableton playback at the time, and I was noticing that everyone's shows sounded so much better than mine and sounded way more competitive, and they sounded like their album. And I was like, what are they doing? And then I realized it was all Ableton playback, even if it was just a little bit. So let's take another song now. This is Watermelon Sugar by Harry Styles. And let's check out his live performance and see how he may have incorporated Ableton playback. This is much more full band with less coming through with the playback tracks. So this is a good example of one of those very subtle uses of playback. I also think it's kind of funny because I think he was too far away from the mic when the count-in was coming, and he had to run really quickly up to the mic. Okay, so I think I put that in the little annotation. Okay, let's check it out. Harry Styles. I will continue working on the dance moves for future streams. If you guys have requests, let me know. So that is a good example of so the percussion totally sets the groove of this song, that kind of between a swung and straight, And the groove would really not slap as hard without that. Also, the horns. I've seen multiple configurations of his band, and sometimes they have a horn section and sometimes they don't. So they can just throw those horns in. If they don't, it's really great for if you're touring like overseas or just out of town and you can't afford to bring everyone with you. You don't have to sacrifice the song. So let's check out again the session and how we would then go about putting this in. Hey, look at that, Simple Sam. You can see me this time. Simple Sam says that he should have brought the BG singers for stage presence. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Whenever you can, like I would take out the acoustic guitar player and add a background singer because that's a much more obvious part to the audience, especially because the audience is usually going to latch on to the vocal. So Simple Sam, you should be Harry Styles, MD. Okay, so here's Watermelon Sugar. So I've now made a new marker by using my set button, or if you have your own command. And importantly, going into my automation, by clicking A, I've changed the tempo of the session because it would be pretty boring to have all our songs at the same tempo. So this is at 95, so I made 2 points right next to each other, and I made that 95, which you can do by dragging or right-clicking. So now my grid is at 95. Now I have put in another count-in. So I'll play you this count-in. Watermelon Sugar. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3.
Tastes like strawberry.
And you notice I only said 1, 2, 3. I didn't say the 4 because there's a pickup. It's like 1, 2, 3. Tastes like strawberry. And this is one that's, whoops, I just tried to get a crumb off my mouse pad and everything went haywire. Super important to have the note in the count-in or else they are not going to hear, they're not going to know where to begin. Watermelon Sugar. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3.
Tastes like strawberries on a summer evening, and it sounds just like a song. I want more berries.
Okay, so every time I drag in a new element, I keep it in, let's get out of automation mode, I keep everything in the same group. So this is my lead vocal for every single song. I'm not creating a new lead vocal track every time I have a new song. Reason being, I want to be able to, and we're going to get to this at the end, route these as groups. So I want to give the sound person a cable and say, this is all my instruments for the whole song, or this is all my, sorry, not for the whole song, for the whole show, or this is all my sub bass for the whole show. And you can't do that if you have like, well, I guess you could if you grouped them together, but it doesn't really make sense. So lead vocal. So I also have background vocals in both songs. So I have those lined up. I have electric guitar in both. I didn't have an acoustic guitar in the song before, but I do here. So I've added an audio track for acoustic guitar, piano, synth. I don't have strings for this song, so it's fine. I just left it blank. And then I added horns. I have bass. I don't have effects. I have percussion. I have drums. So let's make this look somewhat like what that show we just saw. So they had a drummer I'm going to deactivate. And by the way, the reason I'm deactivating and not deleting is I want access to it. So a lot of times in rehearsals, if someone can't make it, you'll just put that in the tracks. Oftentimes bands are rehearsing without the singer, so it's really nice to have the lead vocal always available. I'm also not just turning off the track because I find there's just more room for error if you like accidentally turn on the track and then you have like 2 sets of drums. So I deactivate. So the percussion track is super important to keep. You can see how much that is adding. They did have a bass player, so deactivate. They did not have horns. They did have a keyboard player, but I would bet you they left the synth in to give some extra layer, but we'll delete the piano or deactivate. They had an acoustic guitar. They had an electric guitar. They didn't have background vocals, and they, of course, had lead vocals. So here's what it would sound like in the ears. Watermelon Sugar. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. On a Sunday morning. Cool. So this is, in my opinion, a super tasteful version of using playback because it really wasn't obvious on stage, I guess, besides Simple Sam's pointing out that there should have been background vocals. But it was a very dynamic musical show. There was still plenty of room to be musical and make changes night to night. But this nice foundation that just sort of filled in the gaps was there. And another kind of nice trick is, and this was more apparent on the song before, if you do something the first time, if you play it the first time, the audience sort of accepts that you're playing it, and then you can put it in the track. So you might have noticed on the first one that the drummer played the cowbell the first time, and then it was in the tracks the second time. So let's see, I think this is the cowbell coming up. So if I was MDing this, I would probably get a separate cowbell stem, but something like that. And to do that, I just selected and pressed 0. Da, 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 da. It's actually my guess that they had it in the tracks, and because I don't think the cowbell was mic'd, but the second time, no one played it. But we already were like, oh, someone's playing cowbell. Another kind of cool thing to do is the first time you introduce something such as like a synth, or let's say actually the strings, to have them a little lower the first time you introduce them. So the reason to have them a little bit lower is so that it's not so obvious that there's just like this new thing that's not being played on stage, and the audience can kind of get used to it, and then the second time they hear it, they're like, oh, okay, obviously this existed. So there's a, oh, thanks, Simple Sam, my mic is low. Let me turn it up. Simple Sam is on the case today. Is this better? Let me know if this is better, everyone. Okay, so, or wait, actually, is this better? Is this better? Is this better? 2 ways to automate the clip. You could select it and go down here and turn it down. Or you could automate the volume. Don't automate the volume on the track, like the tracks mixer. Let me show you why. So if I go in here and I automate this volume, great. But now, what if I decide when I'm listening back to this mix that just overall the strings are not, they're too loud. If I go here to now turn down the strings, I override all my automation, and then it's really annoying because I have to go in here and then drag this down. So it's just not a good idea to do it that way. But a great workaround is to use a utility plugin. Utility plugin, what? Love a good utility plugin. Okay, so now I can automate the gain of the utility. Let's get rid of this. And so I'm going to go here, utility, gain, make this lower. And now if I just decide I want to bring everything up, I can do that and I still maintain my automation on the utility. So that's the way to do volume automation. Okay. Cool. So that's Watermelon Sugar, and we have one more song in this pretend set where we are Harry Styles, Taylor Swift, and Dua Lipa. How are we doing though, everybody? Are we doing good? How's the mic? Let's see what we got going on. Simple Sam. Look at all these messages from Simple Sam. Simple Sam is making me feel like I am somebody. I would just be nothing without you, Simple Sam. Okay, cool. So let's go back to the session. I'm going to show you one more song and then show you about how to route it and MIDI map it to play it live. Okay, so this is, oh, hey, Danica from Canada, or probably Donica. Is it Donica or Danica? If it's Donica, type a 1. If it's Danica, type a 2. And the lights in this room they've gone off. I'm trying to like subtly get them back on, but they're not subtly coming back on. Okay. We'll live. So let's go back here. All right, so the third song was Willow, and this was her Grammy performance, and she basically used tracks for the entire thing and just had her boy Jack Antonoff playing acoustic guitar. So here's the tracks for Willow. Here's the count-in, and here's again the song tempo. Super important that we automate the new song tempo. Put a marker here. So here we go. Willow. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So for this one, for her show, the only thing that was out would be acoustic night, and of course lead vocal. Wherever you stray, I'll follow. I'm begging for you to playback because I think it's kind of like singing to karaoke. I think it's better when you use it as sort of a glue to just enhance something rather than it's all you have happening. But when there's a global pandemic and you can't have lots of musicians on stage, it can be helpful. Okay, so I have these 3 songs. So let's say that now I am going to play them live. The first thing I'm going to do is MIDI map my markers and stop and play. So let me show you guys. Don't start now. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Watermelon sugar. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Sorry about that, everyone. I think I'm back. Simple Sam is seriously coming to the rescue today. Thank you, everyone. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Okay, so let me show you again. I think we lost I think we lost sound for that entire portion. So, what I was saying was I'm using this MIDI controller to MIDI map the markers so that when I play live, I don't have to be hooked up to at my computer. So what I did was I went and mapped each of these parameters by pressing it and then just pressing the key or the pad. And it doesn't have to be an LPD8. It can be anything. Any MIDI controller. And it's nice to have a dedicated MIDI controller to use live and label it with all your songs. So I MIDI mapped just each marker on this pad, this pad, this pad, and then play and stop on this pad and this pad. And now I can navigate around my sessions super easily. I'm going to make myself a little bit bigger so that you guys can see it in action. Okay, so here I am, and I'm gonna navigate to don't start now, then I'm going to push play. Don't start now. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then this is what would stop it. Now I'm going to navigate to Watermelon Sugar. Press play. Watermelon Sugar. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Cool. And then I can navigate to Willow.
Willow.
Play.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, that one just starts with acoustic guitar. And then I can press stop. So MIDI mapping, super easy, and it's a really great step to take to just make your show look even more polished and less like you're standing at a computer. Okay, now routing. This is the majority of students I talk to, the reason they haven't maybe used this live is not because they don't know how to do everything I just showed, but because they're like, how do I get the sound to the stage and the click in my ears? So let's talk about it. I promise it is not that bad. So all you need is an interface with at least 3 outputs. And you could even really get away with 2, but it's ideal to have an interface with 3 outputs. One of my favorite recommendations that's at like an okay price point is the Motu Ultralight. And that has, I think, 12 outputs. So let's go. I'm going to tab over to Session View. And by the way, you could bring this all into Session View and do it this way with like song 1, song 2, song 3 here. But for now, there's no real reason I need to do that, so I'm going to keep it over in Arrangement View. But let's collapse the stream. The really important thing I need to look at is my click and my count, because I do not want the audience hearing those, but I do want to be able to hear them in my ears and the track. Oh, you enigmatic onion has an LPD8. Yes, great for macros when I'm deep on the push too. Hell yeah. Okay, so I lost my train of thought. Okay, so what you want to do is create a return track. So create return track or Option Command T and name it something like ears. All right, so this is where you're going to receive everything that goes into your ears. So I'm going to send my click and count to C. I'm also going to send all my other groups to C because I want to be able to hear what I'm doing. And I'm also going to change this to sends only, because I'm saying like I don't ever need to be hearing the click and count out of the master. I need to be hearing the click and count in my ears, which are a send. So now if I solo the click and count, or let's actually just loop this one. Oops, loop. Don't start now. 1. So you can now see 1, it 2, 3, 4 leveling on the ears. Okay. So now what I would do is send this out a channel that is not 1 and 2, because 1 and 2, let's pretend you only have 3 outputs. 1 and 2 are your master. So I'm going to send my ears out 3. And in case you're using the Q, which is Ableton's metronome, you would also send that out 3. And now you will not, if we now listen, we do not hear, because you guys are hearing the master, you do not hear the click and the count. But as long as my headphones are plugged into that channel 3, I will hear them. Also, this is nice because I can create a custom mix. Like, for instance, a lot of people don't like to have the drums all the way up in their ears. And if you have many outputs, you can make ears for everyone. So everyone can have a custom mix. So you could have like ears for drums, and then ears for the guitar. And you could send just a slightly different amount of anything to those people. Okay, so then everything else comes out the master. Now, if you wanted to if you had more outputs and you wanted to go deeper with this, you could also break up your groups. So you could do something like send your instruments to, let's configure the output here. So you could send your instruments to 3 and 4. Let's collapse this too so it's a little easier to see. You could send your drums to 5 and 6. And your vocals to 1 and 2. The reason to do this is so that the sound person has more control over your mix. The reason to not do it is if you have a really, really short sound check and the sound person doesn't know your music, you are probably going to have a better sense of how it's meant to sound in the box. And so in that case, I would just send it stereo. But if you have a sound person that really knows your music or you have more time for a sound check, it's nice to break those up. Usually when I'm doing something, no matter what, I'll send the sub bass as its own thing and the kick drum because those can just react so differently on different systems and different rooms. But as long as you are coming out of these on the back of your interface, and you could get something like a snake where you plug in your 1/4 inch into your interface and then out comes an XLR. If you want to get even fancier, you could get something like a Radial D8, which has a bunch, like 8 DIs on it. But it's really not necessary to do that. As long as you are like getting that 1/4 inch from the back of your interface into an XLR on the mixer, you're good to go. And then you do your show. And ideally, you don't ever have to look at your computer. So there's so many more ways you can expand with this. You can, of course, change your MIDI sounds for every song, change your SPDSX sounds for every song. This is just getting into the very first part of it. And I love Ableton playback. I think it is so fun. It makes it just really, really easy to perform and have a differing configuration each time. And yeah, we'll talk about next time probably, or the next time after, how you would then go about changing your MIDI sounds. So first you have your tracks, but then you want to be able to change your MIDI sounds in between each song, maybe automate some other parameters to change, and that's super fun. And we'll get in deeper with that. How are we doing, guys? Do we have any questions? It's like fall time in New York. Today was the first day I put on a coat. It's like 50 degrees. It's crazy. It's going to be Halloween. Then it's going to be Thanksgiving. We got to start having our our pumpkins, our chai tea lattes. Thank you, everyone, especially Simple Sam gets the MVP for helping so much with the stream today. Love you, Simple Sam. Wait, Danica. I don't think I ever saw how to pronounce your name. All right. I'm going back in the feed. All right. I'll ask next time. Thank you guys so much for being here. It's amazing to see you. We have a super cool giveaway, Sound Toys Crystallizer, which I love. Make sure you enter the link. It's a really, really good plugin. I use it all the time. It like makes really boring things sound really fancy and cool. And you just have to slap on a plugin. Alrighty, guys. Well, without further ado, let's look at what we have coming up tomorrow. Tetro Talks, always so fun. Love you guys, and very much looking forward to seeing you in 1 week from today. Now I'm officially back. No more weddings, no more being out of town. You guys rock, and I'll see you soon.